Now.
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
7:06 on O'Connor and Company. Thanks for tuning in here on a busy Wednesday morning as we continue our preview of next week's Democratic National Convention. Doing the job the media refuses to do, actually vetting the Democrats' ticket from top to bottom, and there's a lot of bottom there. 8:05, Phil Wegman, the reporter, White House reporter for Real Clear Politics. He did a great job, by the way, with Karine Jean-Pierre, sort of locking the Biden-Harris ticket in here. You know, asking Karine Jean-Pierre last week, or earlier this week, I should say, did Joe Biden have any disagreements with Kamala Harris at all? Nope, not a one. It's brilliant, actually. Harris can't distance herself in any way whatsoever from the failures of this administration. Yep. 8:35, Josh Kroshauer will join us as well. It's Larry O'Connor with Julie Gunlock. Good morning, Julie.
Good morning.
And as you know, we like to discuss the media here. The person who brought me into this world, Andrew Breitbart, always said to me, every story is a media story. And there's always a media angle on that story, and that's certainly the watch cry of executive editor of Newsbusters over at Media Research Center, Tim Graham, who joins us now, a great observer and analyst of the media. But media bias goes well beyond what we're seeing these days, Tim. First of all, good morning. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, can I just say, where's the Bob Woodward book who tells us what Joe and Kamala disagreed about?
Hey, that's a great point. There's always a tell-all where he's got all these sources in the White House that you know, and it always comes out right around the fourth year. What's happened to Bob? Yeah,
he's done 4 books on Trump. 4.
Yeah.
Well, I guess he knows what sells. Hey, Tim, we mentioned this with Cal Thomas earlier because, you know, he's like an old school journalist here. Yes, he had a perspective on things, but journalism, he made the point that this isn't about, nobody can be biased, but at the very least be fair. But the media did sort of relinquish that. After Trump won in 2016, so many people were broken in this town. And in the industry, in the media industry, they basically said, they announced it ahead of time, we can't let this happen again. The old rules don't apply anymore. And so if you're Kamala Harris and you know the media has taken your side, you know that they're not going to do anything that's going to give Donald Trump a chance, well, then why should you play fair with them? Why should Kamala Harris give an interview? Who's going to make her?
That's right. I think what we're witnessing right now over the last several weeks is just this amazing prospect that they are so in her camp that it's okay for her to hide. Yeah. And everybody's okay with it. That's why I'm now calling them the zero self-respect press. Yeah. You know, because, they're on the team, you know, and Trump's being punished for going out there and talking to Elon Musk. He's being punished for having a press conference. The column I wrote today is NPR did put up an item on Sunday saying the 162 lies in Trump's press conference. You know, I mean, they're trying to punish them. You're exactly right. Their journalistic ethic right now is anything that defeats Trump is news.
Yeah.
You know, it was interesting, we talked earlier, just the last segment, we talked about Caitlin Collins going on Stephen Colbert's show, and there was this sort of laugh line that wasn't intended to be a laugh line. And I love your opinion on that, because that really was sort of funny how the audience was very clearly conveyed a message of, we all know that you're essentially in the bag for Kamala. But there was something she said.
Let's let people hear it.
Yeah, sure.
I know you guys are objective over there, that you just report the news as it is. Oh, I know. CNN makes it. I know.
Was that supposed to be a laugh line?
I wasn't supposed to be, but I guess it is.
I guess it is. So I'd love your opinion on that. But I also, earlier she said that Trump's having a really hard time dealing with a woman and a black woman. I've heard that before. Maggie Haberman was on CNN yesterday actually saying that. Is that also one of these sort of talking points that they are trying to push, and which the media is happy to convey?
Oh, yes. I mean, you have to say it's an old white man, so he must be racist and sexist. That, you know, and this is the entire appeal of Kamala Harris. It's not actually her talent. It's not actually her orator skills. It's the whole idea of, if you criticize her, well, you're probably a racist and a sexist. And so this is the whole problem is you turn to Maggie Haberman and it's sort of like she's his therapist and she unloads about all of his misogyny and all of his, it comes from his childhood. There's way too much mind reading going on. And this is exactly the kind of analysis they're not going to do to her. They're not going to ask why she is the way she is.
Yeah. You've been covering over at Media Research Center this lawsuit against CNN. We mentioned a little bit of it. We played some audio from the original report that Jake Tapper and his team did about an individual who was working tirelessly and heroically to get Americans out of Afghanistan after the disastrous Biden withdrawal. The CNN and Jake Tapper are now facing a $1 billion defamation suit. Can you give us an update on that? Because it appears as though during the pretrial hearings, at least, it's definitely not going CNN's way.
Yeah, Nick Fondacaro at Newsbusters has been our dogged reporter on this. And, obviously this man was obviously being paid for bringing these people out of Afghanistan. And that was what their snotty, obnoxious report basically said he was sort of scamming people or, exploiting them for profit. Yeah, that was really the tone of it. Yeah. And that's where he was like, you know what? You're ruining my reputation. I'm going to sue you for defamation. And what's going on right now is they're all fighting because the CNN does not want Jake Tapper involved in this courtroom. So now they're running around saying, well, Jake Tapper doesn't know anything about the economics of his show. And the judge was like, I'm sorry, I'm kind of having trouble believing that.
Right.
And so that's the comedy of all of this is Jake Tapper's playing dumb.
Well, I mean, actually, there is there's great irony to that, actually, because he pretends like he's the smartest man in the room at all times. So I guess it's nice that his best response to this whole thing is, I don't know nothing. I'm just an idiot with a haircut and I read a teleprompter.
And I think one of the things that gets us, Larry, is that he's written books about heroic soldiers. He's very big on being for the vets.
Yes.
Well, why is he trashing this guy?
Well, has Tapper said anything about Waltz? I have not heard anything. I mean, it really is amazing that he has not. First of all, am I wrong? Has he said anything or had a show on Waltz?
I think there's been some minor stuff, but that's exactly right. I mean, it's amazing. I thought yesterday when Waltz comes out, he gives a speech, and he makes some pompous comment about we should applaud everybody's service. Now, NBC at least played that clip again of him saying, when I carried a weapon in war. But there are so many more clips, all of us on Twitter, X.
Right.
There's all kinds of clips of him saying I was in Afghanistan, Nancy Pelosi saying he was in Afghanistan. I mean, there's so much video there that they're all trying not to do. And I think that's where, yes, the convention becomes very important. Because I'm old enough to remember, I know you are, Larry, that Dan Quayle, when Dan Quayle was announced right before the Republican convention in '88, they did hundreds of minutes on Dan Quayle's military record.
Yep.
And that's where all they're doing right now is they're running around and saying, he served 24 years, 24 years, 24 years, trying to say he's like a hero and not paying attention to how he's exploited his service in the way that J.D. Vance has really laid out.
Always good to talk to you, Tim Graham, especially when you raise the specter of my age. Thanks for that. Appreciate it.
Me too.
I noticed he didn't. He was very gentlemanly. Did not. I also am old enough to remember that, but I appreciate you letting that go.
Executive editor of Newsbusters, Media Research Center. Always good to talk to you. Give our best to your friends over there at MRC. We love you guys.
Thanks.
It is 7:15. WMAL traffic and weather every 10 minutes. First on that. That was so gratuitous and unnecessary.
You're very sensitive.
He can say I'm old enough to remember and just leave it at that. And I know you are, Larry. So I'm very sensitive about my daughter getting married. It's aging me rapidly.
I know.
Jamie Witten's in the Hadid Carpet Cleaning Traffic Center.
All right, young man, good morning. WMAL.
Making sense of the news.
Live
From the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios.
Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
Upgrade to a new walk-in shower from Long Baths. Call now to get your free estimate today.
Cover of the New York Post says it all. New York City will have to spend $5 billion taxpayer dollars that had not been budgeted and need not have been spent. $5 billion New York City taxpayer dollars on the influx of illegal immigrants that have poured into that city due to the Biden-Harris border crisis. Mind-boggling numbers. That includes nearly $2 billion just for housing the new arrivals, as they like to call them, in the Big Apple. This is according to city data that's been released. It just continues to grow, and there's nothing going to stop this. And if you think that the election will make a difference if Kamala Harris gets back in, no, they'll double or triple down. There's no indication that it would go otherwise. New York Police Department has spent $21 million on public safety and security costs because of, as the New York Post puts it, mayhem breaking out in and around the city-funded migrant shelters. That mayhem is a patented New York Post word. They use that as much as possible, mayhem. This is basically the crisis is the entire budget of the New York Police Department. The New York Police Department budget every year is $5.75 billion. That's pretty much what they spent just taking care of the illegal immigrants, the non-tax-paying non-citizens who have broken the law to come into this country who are now living in New York City.
Many of whom are receiving free hotel rooms, free meals, free walking around money, pocket change. And we've seen this on Man on the Street videos that I've seen through Fox News and other channels, where these illegal aliens admit that, yes, they're living quite well on the government dole. And according to this article in the New York Post, Mayor Adams is saying that it could be double. It could hit $10 billion over a 3-year period ending in 2025. So this is, meanwhile, rec centers that people pay for their taxes through, those are being overrun by these illegal aliens.
Right. You can't use soccer fields. You can't use parks.
You can't use the services. You can't use the soccer
that
fields.
you have paid for.
This is outrageous.
Let alone your schools and all the other.
That's
it's
right.
a drain on public resources that have been set up and determined and paid for by your tax dollars, and now you can't use them because they're now overrun by the new arrivals. Bill Malusian reporting now out of Boston. ICE Boston found and arrested a Haitian illegal immigrant who had been released on $500 bail in June after being charged with raping a 15-year-old girl. Let me just repeat that. An illegal immigrant from Haiti in Boston had been arrested and charged with raping a 15-year-old girl and then was released on $500 bail. He then he had flown into the U.S. on the mass parole program in 2023. Our buddy Greg Price, who does some great political analysis, one of these young Turk conservatives that I love so much, he makes a great point. 20 years ago, think about this, just during the George W. Bush era, when you were working up on Capitol Hill and you still had, hopeful, optimistic stars in your eyes, you thought that you'd be a happy mother at this age, and now look at you tripping over your dog and nearly breaking your leg. 20 years ago, Julie, an illegal alien raping an underage girl in America would have been the biggest story. It would have dominated cable news. It would have been an outrage. There would be demands for congressional hearings and investigations. How did this happen? How did this person in? Massive outrage from Democrats as well as Republicans.
Yeah.
It is now literally a daily story.
Yes.
A daily story you hear about someone who should not be in this country in the first place, who is here and is being accommodated and being paid for by our tax dollars with shelter and food and provisions, who then sexually assaults a child. And it's just an afterthought. It's just a footnote.
It is a daily story that you're told to ignore. I will never forget that panel. Joy Reid, Jen Psaki, a few others who were up there saying, these Republicans are such conspiracists. There's no crime. There is crime.
Yeah, Virginia doesn't have a border problem. Why are Virginians worried about the border?
Pete Buttigieg walking with his bodyguard saying, it's safe. I can totally walk my dog, no problem, while he's flanked by bodyguards.
And or you're told, if you do point it out, that you're being racist.
Right.
Oh, he's Haitian. Oh, so I see. So you're a racist because he's black?
Right.
No, I really have nothing against him because he's Haitian. I have nothing against him because he's from another country. I hold two things against him: that he broke our laws and entered this country illegally and stayed. And, oh, by the way, he raped a child.
Yeah.
And we don't have the wisdom and moral fortitude to be able to just state that as an obvious and recognize that this can all be prevented if the people we hire to do their jobs to enforce our laws actually did it. And no, actually, the woman who was put in charge of our border policies is now ascending to the throne of the presidency and getting a promotion, because that's what happens in Washington, D.C. Because, we can't have Trump. Meanwhile, one other story that hasn't gotten nearly enough attention, although, well, it's gotten plenty of attention on social media. It's gotten tens of millions of views and follows and likes, and it's been promoted by both Elon Musk and Donald Trump. Catherine Herridge, who, her reporting wasn't good enough for CBS News, so now she's doing independent reporting on the X platform. She has an incredible story that you should go to her page and take a look at. Leaked government memo confirms that whistleblowers were targeted by the border agency after exposing the fact that federal DNA collection laws were not being followed for immigration violations. They're supposed to collect DNA samples on every person who violates our immigration laws. Had they done that and then checked them on databases and criminal databases, they would have found some of these rapists, some of these criminals, who then went on to murder people in this country. But those laws were being overlooked and completely ignored. These whistleblowers did their patriotic duty, and then Alejandro Mayorkas and Joe Biden and Kamala Harris's Department of Homeland Security punished the whistleblowers and retaliated against them. This is the Harris-Biden administration that we're living under right now. And if the media is not going to do their job to tell you who they are, you're damn well sure we're going to. It's 7:24.
Making sense of your world.
Thank you guys for all that you do.
News Talk 105.9 WMAL.
I listen to you every day.
Making sense of the news now.
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
7:36, O'Connor and Company. Thanks for tuning in here on this Wednesday morning in your nation's capital, the 14th day of August. Got to get the days right here. Well, it's just flying by. Flying by. Coming up at 8:05, Phil Wegman, White House reporter for Real Clear Politics, who's been doing a bang-up job over there. Boy, between Phil Wegman and Susan Crabtree, Real Clear Politics is really, they got some serious journalists over there. It's great to see. 8:35, Josh Kroshauer, also a serious journalist and political observer, editor-in-chief of Jewish Insider. He'll be joining us as well. It's Larry O'Connor here and Julie Gunlock there, Julie.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for that very delightful and chirpy greeting. Are you feeling okay, by the way?
I'm fine.
All right. I just know
I'm
that
just a little klutzy.
People who are just joining us today, we've been mentioning it. She had a bit of a spill. Our Julie did. I
fell over my dog.
Tripped over her dog. Exactly. And you didn't blame the dog, which I find really admirable.
No, I love my dog. I love my dog.
So, remember when Disney sort of came out with this whole revamped, reimagined version of Snow White?
Oh, yeah.
And first of all, it looked awful, right? They were like these leaked photographs of Snow White with this weird DEI, LGBTQ Benetton ad, sort of dwarves that weren't dwarves kind of thing.
Well, it was also dwarves that were gender and racially diverse.
Right, like a Benetton ad, but also RuPaul's drag show, and it was like exactly, very fluid.
Yes.
And by the way, just to really sort of add diversity to the dwarf thing, they weren't dwarves. In fact, they were like one of them was 6 foot. It looked like, I don't know. So that was pretty bad. And so then Disney decided, this ain't working. So they've decided to reshoot the whole thing and add CGI dwarves in there where the actors used to be, which has got to imagine how humiliating for those actors that they're now replaced by these little CGI
I know.
cartoon characters.
I know. You're right.
And so they've released the trailer, all right. And here's a little bit of what it sounds like, at least, so you can hear.
So whistle while you work.
Okay. I'm already bored with all the thumb.
Yeah, me too.
Thumb.
I also just want to remind you that the woman who plays Snow White, I guess her name is Rachel Zegler.
Zimmer.
Zimmer.
Or Zegler.
Zegler.
Yeah.
She actually made a comment also, in addition to like the woke stuff that was clearly coming out of this. She made a comment about how it's not going to be Snow White being saved by the prince. We don't want any of that toxic masculine.
Right.
She said,
"Oh,
something
the prince
like
was
that.
like a
Remember
stalker."
That? Yeah.
It was
yes,
weird.
Exactly.
He was stalking her, and
Right.
it's not, and basically, and she's also admitted that she sort of hated the original Snow White.
That's right.
So
That's
this
right.
is who they chose to be the Snow White. And you heard just from the tone there. Think about it. Whistle while you work. And I recognize that it's old and it's corny. You know what? Fine. Then just leave the 1930s version on its own and write something new. Right. Be creative, right? But no, we've got to redo it. So Whistle While You Work is this joyful, wonderful, innocent song that Snow White used to inspire the dwarves to clean up their slovenly home. It's a beautiful thing, right? But even that joyful song, you just heard the tone of it. It's almost sounds like it's written in a minor key with this dark, dramatic foreboding. This is a serious whistle while you work. This is very...
Okay, in fairness, that's how I sound when I tell my kids to clean up their stuff.
Yeah.
Okay?
Whistle.
So I'm a little
better,
in a minor key.
You better whistle.
Yeah, or you're going to
right.
trip over the dog.
There was one bright spot in this trailer, though, I have to say, and that was the appearance of the evil queen. It's Snow White. Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all? And the evil queen is supposed to be jealous of Snow White because the mirror says, well, your stepdaughter, Snow White, is the fairest of them all, right? And that's how she plots to kill Snow White.
Right.
It's grim. I get it. See what I did there?
Yeah.
Anyway. We caught a glimpse of the evil queen. It's Wonder Woman, Gal Gadot. And she looks... I mean, here's the problem. And the reaction in 24 hours online was uniformly just absolutely a chorus of unison voices saying, my God, Gal Gadot is 100 times prettier than the Snow White. And listen, the girl playing Snow White is lovely. I take nothing away from her.
Yes.
But they've done something very weird with the haircut. The dress looks weird. She's not being presented well as Snow White. Meanwhile, Gal Gadot could very well be one of the most beautiful women on the planet.
She looks like the fairest of them all.
She is the fairest of them all. And so that was the reaction online and yada, 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 right? Well, here's what's interesting. This actress that we're talking about who plays Snow White, Rachel Zegler, who, by the way, on her X profile has all of her pronouns for display. She's a she, her, hers, in case you were wondering.
Thank you.
She put out a notice on X that says, I love you all so much. Thank you for the love and for the 120 million views on our trailer in just 24 hours. What a whirlwind. By the way, I just want you to know that half of those views were hate views. People were clicking on it. Just because they're looking at it doesn't mean they love you, baby, okay? They were looking at it to hate on it because it looks awful. She says, I'm in the thick of rehearsals for Romeo and Juliet. I bet that's awesome.
Another one to be ruined.
So I'm going to get out of here. Bye for now.
Bye.
And then she tags to that and adds another comment, and it says, and always remember, free Palestine.
Ay, tiresome.
Now, not only is that insufferably ignorant and offensive to, obviously, moviegoers
Everyone.
and venturing into politics and venturing into a toxic zone, which I'm guessing Disney probably didn't want her to do.
Maybe.
But there's also sort of a backhanded aspect of this. Gal Gadot, for you, those of you who don't know, who is the fairest of them all and is the evil queen, although I will be rooting for her. I want that to be the most poison apple you've ever seen in your life. Just go for the cyanide, baby. I want that apple to be so powerful.
Are we supposed to be rooting for the evil witch? Okay.
Well, listen, they're the ones who wanted to reimagine Snow White. So now I'm reimagining who the good guy is here.
Yes.
Gal Gadot is also an Israeli citizen. She has served with the Israeli Defense Forces, as all members of the Israeli citizenry do. She is an unabashed, unapologetic supporter of the State of Israel. So here's her co-star, Little Snow White, going out on X saying, "Remember, free Palestine." This is obviously an insult to her co-star as well. I want the inside story of what happened between these two on the set. It must have been delightful.
I will say Gail was with her when she made those comments about, ew, the prince was such a stalker, and we're not going to
because it was a red carpet promo.
It was, but Gail was sort of giggling along. So I don't know, maybe nothing did happen to them on the set. Maybe it wasn't until after that she decided to be all provocative and insult her co-star.
Yeah, it didn't get a lot of reaction, and you got to wonder what the PR department at Disney is in the middle of right now. It's like they finally got this thing reshot. They finally got the CGI dwarves. They finally put the trailer out. They're trying to get some momentum,
exhausting.
And here this little brat comes out with Free Palestine.
Yep.
And you know what? It couldn't have happened to a better corporation.
Well, and she's
Disney.
now in Romeo and Juliet, so we'll have a woke feminist Juliet coming up soon. That'll be fun.
Which is
That's
kind of funny
great.
because the last big movie she did was West Side Story, which is basically a musicalized contemporary version of Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah,
So
that's right.
This girl's got range, baby. She's got real range.
WMAL, making sense of education, because what's happening in your kid's school matters. Download the WMAL app to stream us for free.
It's amazing all the information coming out about Hunter Biden. By the way, if Joe Biden were still running for president, we would hear none of this. But you heard the story from last week we revealed where the Justice Department, in the case against Hunter Biden for avoiding taxes, of course, revealed that he was an unregistered agent of a foreign country. Of course, he hasn't been charged with that, but that's okay. Now we're learning, as the New York Post is reporting, that acting on behalf of Burisma, you remember the Ukrainian energy company that he was being paid $85,000 a month to sit on the board for. He asked help from the U.S. Embassy in Rome to get a lucrative business deal for Burisma while his father was vice president. This, according to reporting from the New York Post, which has been right about everything with regard to Hunter Biden. Also, State Department records that were released to the New York Times. Only after Joe Biden ended his reelection bid, by the way, did these documents get released to the New York Times. Obviously, he's going to be charged with much higher crimes any minute now, and that's why Joe Biden will be pardoning him. But we point this out just to let you know that the corruption runs deep. It was always there. We were always right about it. And most importantly, Donald Trump's first impeachment was based on him asking for cooperation from the president of Ukraine to look into specifically Hunter Biden's illegal dealings with Burisma, and he was impeached for that.
That's right.
And he was right. He was right all along.
That's right. He was. And not only was Trump smeared and impeached, but the New York Post was canceled for investigating the laptop and other malfeasance by the president's son.
At the demand of the federal government.
That's right.
At the demand of people in the FBI and the intelligence agencies who were sure. And all of your media outlets, other than the New York Post, told you two things over the last 10 years. Number one, the Steele dossier about Russian collusion is 100% trustworthy and is legitimate news.
Yeah.
Even though it was a product of the Hillary Clinton campaign, it was fiction, and Hillary Clinton's campaign was fined for producing it in the first place, number one. Number two, the Hunter Biden laptop story was Russian disinformation and unreliable. They literally lied about the two biggest political scandals of the last 10 years. Literally lied about it, and they want you to trust them now. And I know you don't. That's why you're here, and we appreciate it.
And don't forget, just really quick. Oh, sorry. No, let's go.
Too late. Go.
Okay, well, let's just also not forget that certain never-Trumpers told you were basically ridiculous for even, oh my God, do you actually believe this laptop story? So, the good Republicans were also in on
if you're gonna go there, just name names. Jonah Goldberg. Just say his name.
Okay, fine. Jonah
Goldberg. And David French, who now tells you that he's got to vote for Kamala Harris to save the Republican Party. We love those guys. It's 7:55.
It's 7:55 now, WMAL. Traffic and weather every 10 minutes. First on the fives. I know. I'm not going to say his name. I'm just not going to.
Steve Hayes.
But I will say this name: Jamie Whitten in the Hadid Carpet Cleaning Traffic Center.
Say my name, say my name.